예, 안녕하세요. 오신 한국 참가자분들은 앞으로 이렇게 자리가 많이 남아 있습니다. 오셔서 옆에 누가 왔는지 한번 물어보시고요. 외국인 분들이 대부분 도시에서 문화정책 담당하시는, 어떤 경우는 공무원이고 어떤 경우는 저희와 같이 이제 문화재단 사람들이에요. 같이 이야기도 좀 하시면 좋겠습니다. I'm introducing you, delegates. Yeah, for the domestic audience to come closer. Why don't you invite them just next to you to make some conversation? I'm sorry, I've been talking right on time for you. But I want to give just 5 more minutes for domestic audience. What do you think about it? Because it's too early. Isn't it too early? The serious conversation in the morning, 10:30. So why don't you give them 5 more minutes? Chair? Thank you, Chair. Okay, enjoy your coffee. We're going to start at 10:35, punctually. Yeah, local audiences are coming. I checked the 50 local audience signed, but I don't know how many gonna show. Okay, I want to check one more thing for delegates. Yeah, who's coming tonight for the performance in Namsan Theater? Is anybody more who sign on? Yeah, last night we just a lot of no shows. I don't want to disappoint Miss Wu. She's here, the director of Namsan Theater. Yeah, she's inviting you to the Blue Nation. It's an adoption of the blue wave as an social experiment in United States, and how the show is about how the young guys are turning to group behavior. Yeah, it's a big show, good show, and they provide the English subtitle. Why don't you come? So please, if you want to go to Namsan Theater tonight, anybody, Lijin, or who can sign? Who can? Okay, tell Yvonne this morning, because they are closing the ticket. It's all sold out. It's a special offer for you. It's sold out. So please talk to Yvonne before the session starts. 자리에 착석해 주시면은 원래 계획보다 약 5분만 딜레이해서 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 너무 예, 2분 안에 시작하겠습니다. 저희가 5분 지연돼서 죄송합니다. Okay, we're gonna start in 2 minutes. Why don't you wear the receiver? The English channel 1, Korean channel 2, Chinese channel 5. Yeah, there will start translation. Why don't you wear your receiver? And I think we have all Korean audience. So, is it okay? We start now.
Nice to see you all. Good morning. Welcome everybody to the World Cities Culture Summit in Seoul. The World Cities Culture Forum is a network of 35 major cities from around the world who get together to talk about the importance of culture in developing our cities. This year, we've been very privileged and very happy to come together in your fantastic city of Seoul. And we've had an inspiring couple of days visiting various sites and having discussions and meeting your cultural leaders and seeing the very genuine efforts you're making in your city to create a human-centered city, of which culture is a very important part. It is a tradition in our summits on our final day to have what we call a public session, and this is where we open the doors for members of the general public, people from the cultural sector, so that we can share our thoughts and have a discussion with a broader audience in our host city. So it's so good to see. I'd like to very much welcome the people from Seoul. Hands up, who's from Seoul? They're all from Seoul. These are all our delegates. Please make sure you speak afterwards and exchange ideas on the floor. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to our chair, Justine Simons, who's going to lead the discussion. Shall I invite people onto the stage now, Justine, or are you going to do it after you've done your opening remarks?
Sorry?
Shall I invite people to come and sit on the stage?
You're free to go. Great. Welcome, everyone. As Paul said, this is the public session for the World Cities Culture Summit, hosted in Seoul. Who are we? Very senior cultural officials masterminding culture in 35 global cities, so a really great network of people. And the focus of this morning's session is culture a catalyst for broader civic engagement in cities? Is culture a catalyst for broader civic engagement in cities? And the context for this is that for years GDP has been the standard measure of success. But in a nutshell, what we've discovered is that as GDP increases, people feel worse. So this is something we've been discussing over the last few days, and we feel that we are in a moment in time where there is a real need to shift to a more human-centered way of planning and developing our cities. So a question for us is, what role can culture play in helping develop more fulfilled citizens and cities? What role can culture play in encouraging citizens to be more actively engaged in the civic life of our cities? And Seoul is doing some really pioneering work in this field. And here in Seoul, as many of you will know, they have put this idea at the heart of their vision for the city. And so we're going to start by hearing from Mr. Lee, and then we will open it out and hear perspectives from our panelists from Moscow, Lisbon, Sydney, and Toronto. And we'll hear their views on these questions, what's going on in their cities around the world. And then we'll open it out for a wider Q&A with the audience. So I'd like to invite Mr. Lee to come up to the stage, who is the chair of the Cultural Policy Committee for the Seoul Foundation for Arts and Culture, who've been instrumental in organising the summit. And he is a great thinker and activist. Mr. Lee.
네, 15분이 저한테 주어진 것 같습니다. 제가 15분 버튼을 누르고 Please take your earphone for better communication. 안녕하세요. 지금은 국민대학교 언론정보학부 교수로 있는 이창현입니다. 그리고 저는 서울문화재단의 문화정책위원회 위원장을 맡고 있어서 이 자리에서 여러분에게 15분간 대한민국 서울에서 벌어지고 있는 문화의 역동성을 설명드리고자 합니다. 서울은 경제성장의 도시와 함께 또 민주화를 달성해 놓은 두 마리 토끼를 함께 잡은 전 세계의 유일무이한 공간입니다. 이 공간에서 지난 1년간 어떤 일이 벌어졌는지를 함께 얘기해 보고자 합니다. 좀 전에도 말씀하셨던 것처럼 저스틴이 우리는 세계는 GNP의 성장 담론의 시대에서 이제는 행복의 담론 시대로 변화되고 있다라는 것이 큰 변화의 흐름입니다. OECD에서도 행복 리포트라는 것들을 만들어내는 것도 이런 맥락이겠죠. 이런 맥락 속에서 대한민국 서울은 어떻게 존재하고 있고 또 대한민국의 정부는 이러한 취향에 따라서 이러한 경향의 변화에 따라서 어떻게 잘 대응하고 있는가가 오늘의 화두입니다. 서울 참 다채롭습니다. 여러분이 경험한 서울은 전체 서울의 1%도 되지 않을 겁니다. 서울은 훨씬 더 다양한 다층적, 문화적 지형을 갖고 있고요. 여러분이 오면 올수록 그 다채로움에 반하게 될 것입니다. 서울은 그동안 성장의 시대였습니다. 끝없이 인구가 증가했고 끝없이 아파트가 증가했고 끝없이 자동차가 증가했고 모든 시장들은 더 성장하겠다는 것이 이제까지의 담론이었습니다. 그런데 서서히 인구가 저성장 시대로 돌입하면서 사람들은 성장 말고 성장을 넘어 그 무엇인가를 추구하기 시작하는 패러다임 전환의 시점에 와 있습니다. 서울은 엄청난 성공을 했습니다. 넘버 6 월드와이드. 서울은 런던, 뉴욕, 도쿄, 파리, 싱가포르, 서울 글로벌 파워 we have. 우리는 엄청난 힘을 가지고 있죠. 우리는 자랑스럽고 이제까지 노력해온 것의 성과를 달성했다고 저는 생각합니다. 그런데 이런 것들이 대부분 프로 비즈니스 섹터에서는 훨씬 더 발달했지만 아티스트 섹터는 조금 소홀히 됐었다라는 데이터가 나옵니다. 즉 6위 뭐 이런 국가에서는 R&D, 오버롤 스코어, 무슨 그 트래픽 액세서빌리티 이런 것은 탑 랭킹. But 아티스트 부분, 예술가 부분은 35위, 뭐 최근 데이터는 42위 이렇다는 것이죠. 이 데이터가 무엇을 얘기할까? 이것은 좀 전에 얘기했던 것처럼 성장 담론의 시대에서 우리는 성공했지만 우리의 missing dimension이 있었다. 잃어버린 공간이 있어. 그것은 어쩌면 culture and art 이런 부분이 채워줘야 될 공간이다라고 현재의 박원순 시장은 느끼고 있고 서울시는 그러한 생각에 따라서 문화와 예술을 좀 더 강화시키려는 노력을 기울이고 있습니다. 여기에 계신 서울시의 관계자들한테 여러분 박수 한번 쳐주시겠습니까? 데이터는 얘기합니다. 데이터는 진실입니다. OECD 인덱스에 의하면 6위는 아니고요. Better Life 인덱스는 28위예요. 좀 더 크리티컬한 데이터가 있습니다. 머서 퀄리티 오브 라이프 지수에서는 서울은 얼마일까요? 76th. Not so good score. 그렇죠? 저는 그렇게 생각합니다. 이러한 상황 속에서 우리는 Great Paradigm Shift, 즉 대전환의 시대를 맞이해야 되는데 우리의 중앙정부는 지난 10년간 되게 보수적이었고 더 나아가서는 전체주의적이었던 것 같습니다. 그것의 심볼, 상징이 블랙리스트입니다. Former President Park, 그러니까 박 대통령은 두 분이 계신데 아버지 박과 딸 박이입니다. Strong daughter인데 되게 권위주의적이었습니다. 그러다 보니까 70년대 국가 통치의 패러다임을 21세기에 적용하면서 여러 가지 밸런스가 깨졌던 것 같습니다. 문화의 장관, 문화를 책임진 장관이 문화계의 블랙리스트를 만들었던 지난 10년간이었습니다. 이때 문화라는 것은 정치적으로 동의하면 돈을 주고 정치적으로 동의하지 않으면 아예 퍼블릭 펀드, 지원을 없애버리는 그런 정책이었습니다. 우리의 컨스티튜션, 우리의 헌법엔 절대로 그런 것을 용납하지 않습니다. 우리는 엄청난 민주주의의 헌법을 가지고 있습니다. 그런데 정치가 그걸 담보하지 못한 겁니다. 헌법은 우리의 역사의 결실인데 그것을 담보하지 못했죠. 그래서 다시 헌법의 정신으로 돌아가서 블랙리스트를 만든 사람들은 지금 감옥소에 갔고, 감옥소에 가게 하는 과정에서 아티스트, 문화의 힘은 가장 강력했습니다. 그것이 어저께 우리가 광화문 광장에서 함께 우리 멤버들이 논의했었던 바로 이거죠. 블랙 텐트. 정부가 지원하지 않고 억압할 때 연극인들이 나서서 이것은 잘못됐다라고 얘기하면서 표현의 자유를 주장했었던 것을 우리 대한민국에서 최초로 연극인들이 한 것입니다. 이들은 최저 생계비도 받지 못합니다. 정부의 펀드는 끊겼습니다. 그런 상황 속에서 그럼에도 불구하고 대한민국의 민주주의에서 연극인들의 표현의 자유를 억압하는 것은 있을 수 없다라고 해서 여러분이 본 광화문 스퀘어에 거대한 블랙 텐트를 쳤고 이 옆에다가는 스몰 텐트 60개를 쳐서 영하 15도에 서울의 그 시베리아와 같은 추위에서 그들은 견디고 그래서 정치권을 몰아냈습니다. 토탈 1,700만 명, 매번 모일 때마다 거의 100만 명의 사람들이 촛불을 들고 모였고 이들은 여기에 있는 킹덤과 같은 코리안 화이트하우스, 블루하우스에 대통령 퇴진을 외쳤고 그 퇴진을 외친 것은 헌법적 절차에 따라서 탄핵으로 이어졌습니다. 민주적 절차를 따른 것입니다. 혁명이 아니라 개혁이고 아티스트가 선봉에 섰습니다. 그래서 결국은 대통령이 탄핵되는 사태를 맞이했습니다. 결국 저는 거리의 블랙 텐트가 연극인의 차별이 어쩌면 대통령의 탄핵을 만들어냈고 거기에 시민들은 의식화되었고 시민들이 각성된 것이다 라고 저는 봅니다. 예술가가 이그나이트, 발화했다라고 저는 보고 있습니다. 오랫동안 서울은 서구 대도시를 바라보고 그것을 쫓아가기에 바빴습니다. 우리는 런던이 되고 싶었고요. 우리는 뉴욕이 되고 싶었어요. 우리는 베를린이 되고 싶었고요. 우리는 파리가 되고 싶었어요. 루브르에 찾아갔고 왕립박물관에 찾아갔고 뮤지엄 오브 모던 아트 모마에 찾아갔어요. 그러나 그거는 그들의 현재고 그들의 미래일 뿐 우리의 미래가 될 수는 없었죠. 그러나 오랫동안 우리는 이런 멋진 건축물, 우리 처음 여기서 파티했잖아요. 그 쓰리 라이츠 아일랜드 아주 멋집니다. 예. 그런 것들이 있었던 것 같고요. 여러분 DDP 가보셨을 겁니다. 엄청난 자하 하디드, 마치 샤넬 백을 든 것과 같은 아름다운 것이지만 주변에 있는 노동자들의 삶과는 아무 관계없는 것이죠. 자, 저는 좋다고 봐요. 좀 전에 세빛둥둥 섬도 좋고 동대문 DDP도 도시에는 필요한 겁니다. 그러나 이것만일 수는 없다는 것이죠. 이것 플러스 알파가 있어야 된다는 것입니다. 합법적인 시위가 시장에 의해서 막혔습니다. 자동차가 바리케이트를 치고 시민들의 요구를 막았고 이게 바로 여러분이 있는 이 시청 바로 앞입니다. 100m 앞에 벌어진 상황이고 여러분이 인조이 했었던 서울 광장이 시장에 의해서 시위를 할 수 없는 공간이었었습니다. 광화문 광장은 대통령에 의해서 시위하지 못하도록 됐었던 공간을 시민들이 만들어냈습니다. 불행히도 우리의 큰 마포대교라는 데에는 자살하지 마세요라는 퍼블릭 광고가 있습니다. 광고는 깐느 그랑프리를 받았지만 저는 이 광고가 있는 서울특별시는 건강하지 않은 것 같습니다. 자살을 광고로 막는 국가, 도시, 여기에 미래가 있겠습니까? 저는 자살하지 않는 사회적 환경과 문화적 환경을 만들어야 되는 것이다. 이런 선전판으로 대체가 안 된다라고 보고 있습니다. 그래서 시장님은 서울 플랜에서 해피, 그러니까 소통과 배려가 있는 행복한 시민 도시가 패러다임 쉬프트의 목표라고 생각했고 이것을 지난 5년, 6년간 해오고 있다고 생각하고 요점을 평가해 주셨으면 좋겠습니다. 서울 플랜은 한마디로 하면 글로벌 시티가 되고 싶은 열망에서 벗어나서 시티즌스 시티가 되고 싶은 열망으로 바뀌는 겁니다. 이때는 다 글로벌 경쟁력, 비즈니스 프렌들이 이것만 주장했고 디자인 시티만 주장했지만 지금은 시티즌스, 해피니스, 쉐어링 이런 것이 중요됩니다. 저는 영어 표현으로 하면 not only but also 라고 얘기합니다. 글로벌 경쟁력도 중요하지만 not only 이것도 함께 가야 된다. 그러나 과거 패러다임은 너무 디자인, 글로벌 이런 것만 강조됐었다. 거기에 시빅 스피릿을 넣어서 디모크라시를 이그나이트, 촉발시켜야 된다라고 저는 봅니다. OECD 국가에서 한국 사람은 가장 많이 일합니다. 어른들만 일하지 않아요. 서울에 있는 공무원들은 여러분 국가에 있는 시 공무원보다 maybe 2배 일합니다. 오버워크. 아이들은 어떨까요? OECD 국가에 가장 적게 행복한 국가가 서울이에요. 오버스타디. From 7 to 11. Can you imagine? 아침 7시부터 밤 11시까지 일하고요. 학교 말고는 애프터 스쿨이 있는데 아카데미가 있어요. We are well trained. 잘 교육된 사람이라고 옛날엔 좋아했지만 이걸로는 미래가 없다는 걸 우리는 알기 시작했습니다. 이제 다른 패러다임으로 가야 된다는 거죠. 자, 그래서 뉴욕시티 전 좋아합니다. 브로드웨이 좋아하고요. 네, 좋아합니다. 그러나 저는 여기에서 보여지는 건 머니스케이프, 캐피탈스케이프, 비즈니스스케이프, I think so. 저는 다른 스케이프를 원합니다. 베를린에는 홀로코스트 뮤지엄, 주이시 뮤지엄, 토포그래피 오브 테러 뭐 등등등 수없이 많은 메모리즈가 있어요. 저는 메모리스케이프가 됐으면 좋겠고 이것이 민주화, 자유로움을 만들어냈으면 좋겠습니다. 제가 후쿠시마 사태 이후에 혼자, 이게 접니다. 광화문 광장에서 핵발전소를 반대하는 1인 시위를 했습니다. 제가 저널리즘을 공부하는 학자니까 우리의 언론에서 너무 지배적으로 원전이 안전하다라는 신화를 만들어내는데 이거 잘못됐다라고 제가 얘기한 것이죠. 이런 게 광화문에서 있어야 돼. Time finished. Just 1 minute, please. 해머 공간이 여러분 여기서 300m 거리에 있습니다. 그러나 여기에서는 노동자의 가치는 없어요. 그냥 해외의 멋진 이 아티스트 작품을 갖다 놓은 거에 불과합니다. 이 사주는 이거를 만든 사주는 노동자를 탄압한다고 그 앞에 노동자들이 3년째 계속 데몬스트레이션을 하고 있습니다. 노동자를 얘기하는 아티스트 아니죠? 이거는 한일 간의 불행한 역사의 산물인 컴포트 우먼을 기록하는 서울의 일본 대사관 앞에 반일 소녀상입니다. 지난주에 저는 트럼프 대통령을 반대하는 시위를 했습니다. 광화문 광장에서. 트럼프를 반대하기 위한 것은 아니고요. 전쟁을 반대하고 평화를 찾기 위한 것이었습니다. 7일 날 트럼프 대통령이 오시죠. 저는 한미 간에도 좋고 북한과도 좋은 관계가 돼서 전쟁이 안 났으면 좋겠습니다. 이러한 시민적 각성과 시민적 표현이 서울 시내에서 이루어지고 시민과 함께 소통할 때 저는 서울이 단지 GNP가 높은 글로벌 경쟁력이 높은 도시가 아니라 시민적으로 각성돼 있고 민주주의를 만들어내는 도시로 만들어질 수 있다고 생각합니다. 여러분 동의하십니까? 박수 한번 쳐주시죠. 그리고 오늘 다양한 도시에서 오신 분들이 커멘트를 주시면 그 커멘트를 좀 만들어서 우리 시장님과 여기에 계신 그 서울시의 유능하신 공무원들과 함께 더 멋진 서울시를 만들어갈 수 있도록 저도 노력하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you so much. That's a fantastic overview. Can I invite all our speakers to the stage now, including you, Mr. Lee? Thank you very much. Give our speakers a round of applause. Hurrah, we're on. So, thank you so much. That's fantastic. I think we'll go straight into some panel reflections. And I want to start with Toronto. I want to ask Sally. So Sally Han heads up economic development and culture, which we will come on to in a minute. And Sally's got a unique perspective in that she lives and works in Toronto, but she was born here in Seoul. So we're talking, I want to ask you a question about your job title.
Yes.
In the past few days, we've talked about the move away from GDP as this single measure of success and towards the idea of social value, well-being of citizens and the way that culture can help deliver that. And it has often seemed like GDP and culture have become two opposing forces. However, your job title is Manager of Economic Development and Culture. So I'd love your perspective on the relationship between economic development and culture in Toronto.
Right. So just to be clear, the division I work for within the city of Toronto is economic development and culture, but and the division was only put together about 17 years ago, and up until like now, basically the city has pursued two different strategies. One specifically devoted to economic development, business retention, business development, foreign investment, small business sector development, your sort of classic economic development, as well as cultural development, which was then sort of split off into our museums and heritage, our not-for-profit cultural sector, and our creative industries. What is interesting is that the city of Toronto, being nowhere near the global city that Seoul is yet, is that for the city of Toronto, in our context and our development, the economic argument has actually been proven to be the one most effective in drawing resources to our not-for-profit sector and to our artists. And so for me, as someone who's trying to promote culture and art in the city, I'm very hesitant to sort of drop that argument within our political context because it has been so effective. The artists and the students and the activists in our city started campaigning for a $25 per capita investment in arts and culture. Seoul's is probably much higher. And they've been campaigning for that since 2003. Now, as a campaign for artists, that's not a really particularly inspiring one, but nevertheless, it was extremely effective. It actually brought together board members of institutions, grassroots arts organizations, local arts organizations, and regular institutional leaders to all lobby for that investment. And then by next year, we will actually finally have reached that target. It took from 2003 to 2017. So what we need to do in a citizen-engaged cultural policy in the city is economic development with culture. I can't imagine that in the communities in Toronto, where there's the least amount of cultural infrastructure, the least amount of any kind of public infrastructure like transportation and housing, that we could imagine a cultural development strategy that doesn't also include an economic development strategy. When we're dealing with youth from racialized and marginalized communities, when we're dealing with newcomers and immigrants, and the city of Toronto is over 50% newcomers in terms of first-generation immigrants to the city, our strategies have to look at economic development. When we go out to those communities, they tell us, absolutely, we do want our libraries, functioning as often as possible. We also want grocery stores that are not 3 bus rides away. We also want parks that are open so that we can take our kids and walk in them. So I guess for me, I'm saying that cultural development is a crucial part of overall community development, but in Toronto's context, I don't see it as separate from economic development.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come to Sydney now, to Lisa Coley, who leads cultural strategy for Sydney. And I think it'd be great if you could do a bit of scene setting, because you've been on quite a journey with public engagement, and I think I'm right in saying you are about to launch your big social strategy with culture right at the heart of it. So, and also it'd be great if you could tell us about your principles of civic engagement.
Thanks, Justine. Yes, look, I thought it would be useful just to give a little context. In 2006, the City of Sydney asked the question to our citizens, what kind of city do you want Sydney to be in 2030? And, we conducted over 2 years of really deep conversations with our community. And, they told us pretty resoundingly that 97% that they wanted us to deal with climate change. So that was an absolutely top of the list requirement. But there was a whole range of other things, of course, that people wanted to see, including a cultural and creative city, where you could see culture and arts on the streets in everyday life. So the core principles around Sydney 2030 were really around providing for healthy communities, promoting opportunity, cultural participation and diversity, demonstrating integrity and inclusiveness, and strengthening Sydney's competitiveness, productivity and capacity. So that was in 2006. We're now in 2017. And the City of Sydney developed a set of community wellbeing indicators and a framework to assist us to understand how are we doing? How are we tracking against those aspirations that the city, our citizens had given to us? And the measures track things like our quality of life, material living conditions, including our health, housing, work, income, education, social connections, safety, all the things that we've been hearing about in these last few days. We've now run this survey twice, in 2011 and 2015, and it's delivered us some really important data for the information for the city. And it really analyses, I think, the challenges that we face. On the one hand, our residents have very high levels of education and employment and rate their quality of life and personal relationships very highly. But the reality for a largely professional, young and time-poor resident base makes some targets and desired trends particularly challenging. For example, around half our residents perceive a lack of opportunity to actively participate in recreational pursuits such as arts and culture and sporting activities. But the other key thing is that rates of disillusionment with democracy as a general concept and citizen engagement in decision-making processes is very high. So where does that place a city government, where those levels of trust are, is an issue for us? And so for us now, the issue of trust is critical in looking at community engagement, because for citizens to participate and tell us what they want and need, they actually need to trust that they will be heard and we will act on what they are telling us. Because in fact, we see a lot of resistance in people actually telling us what they want because they don't believe that there's going to be the consequent action. So, and there are also conflicting needs amongst our citizens that make decision-making for us difficult even when we do listen. Because, for example, a vibrant nighttime economy also has an impact on how residents sleep at night. So who do we listen to? So I think this is where, for me, being in Seoul this time, I think we can do much better. We're really trying to look at different ways that we can engage, with our communities in a more deep way, and looking at things like participatory democracy and, citizen juries and those sorts of things. But, we're really just on, I think, a very early journey for that. And what I will say is that I do think that engagement in culture and cultural activity does really help with that, because it actually provides, what I've seen it provide is a very a safe space for people to express themselves, and also it has such good communication. We have an area in Sydney that is where we have more than 3,000 social housing residents, and they've found it very difficult to get their message across about what they want. And so there was a fantastic project that they did where they actually had lighting. They've designed kind of individual lights in each of the rooms, these very tall towers. And so at night time, you've got these beautiful jewel-like, images coming from it. And the title of it is "We Live Here." So it was an incredibly powerful message, which is, we're not anonymous, these are our homes that you are going to knock down. And what are we going to do? Because we've built a home here. So I think this is where the power of culture to communicate, to engage, to give people a different level of communication that goes beyond just an interview or a survey. That's what I'm interested in.
Fascinating. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move to Lisbon. Alexandra Sabino is an advisor to the Deputy Mayor for Culture. And I think it'd be great if you would set a little bit of context because, there's been 40 years of dictatorship in Lisbon. And you're about to you're writing your first kind of big strategy. So it'd be great to hear about your perspective. Microphone?
Yeah, okay.
Got it?
So for the ones who know Lisbon, I think you might agree that it's a city with very dynamic nowadays, but of course it hasn't always been like that. And I think in terms of civic participation, we still feel the consequences of 40 years of dictatorship, also a non-investment in education, and therefore there is not much tradition in civic participation. So we believe that culture can play a big role in this. There are some experiences. It's not at the moment an overall strategy, but we believe that we are starting with some pilot measures, pilot projects, starting to be the driver of civic participation. We wrote the strategies for culture in 2009, and now we've just recently updated it to a set of new measures which have as a basis the Agenda 21 for Culture, which is a document from another international network, UCLG, and it is based on 9 commitments. And the belief that the narrative that culture is the 4th pillar of sustainable development. Okay, this, I think, it's a way to place culture at the same level as social, economic, and environmental development. But of course we can agree or not on this narrative, but I think this is really useful to place the role of culture in political discourse. So this is our strategy, and of course civic participation is a big part of it. And so in these strategies for 2017, we consulted the population and mainly, of course, the cultural agents. In the methodology that we used, we had a first big meeting with cultural agents. I believe we have a very good relationship with the cultural sector. Our Deputy Mayor for Culture is from the field. She was a cultural producer before. And so we had a very big meeting with more than 200 cultural agents, where we asked them, what do you think the strategies, what is missing in the city, what is wrong, what do you think is the way to go? And after this, also various focus groups, divided age groups, also thematic groups, territorial, and some dedicated to certain issues that we felt were very important for the city. For instance, tourism, which is growing rapidly in Lisbon, and is becoming at the same time very good economically, but in terms of the city, it causes some tensions. We call festivalization of the events, so having many festivals instead of a whole year program. And well, some of these themes were approached in the various focus groups. So we came out with a set of very concrete measures, and well, we're just starting to get them.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. You get applause. Great. And let's go on to Moscow. Vladimir Filippo, who is the deputy head of the Moscow Culture Department. And what I'd love you to tell us about is this fascinating research that you've been doing in Moscow, where you've been looking at the behaviours of cultural audiences and discovered fascinating things, like the more likely you are to be a cultural organiser if you go to the theatre. So can you tell us a bit more about that research?
We ran several surveys in 2014 and 2016 studying cultural practices of Muscovites or our citizens. And active cultural participation is directly proportional to civic engagement. Among citizens who prefer to spend their free time in culture institutions, there are 1.5 times as many people who organize local communities to manage their houses and commercial area, 26% more people who visit meetings of property owners association, and 43% more people who came up with the civic initiatives during these meetings, and more people who are environmentally conscious. My colleagues mentioned yesterday that we know only the correlations, but not the causation. But we will not mention it for the press, right? At least we know for sure that culture and civic engagement are directly linked.
Fantastic. So I've got a question which maybe a few of you would like to respond to, which is about how government sits in this space, the role of government. And my proposition is that creativity is a bit like a teenager. It doesn't respond well to authority. So how can government get it right? Who wants to take that? Go.
I'll have a go. I think Sydney is a bit like a teenager, actually, not just creativity. I think it's interesting, the role of government. I think about this, with a teenager, having had teenagers, mine are grown up now, that you want to set some boundaries, but then you want to let them go, and experiment and do their own thing, just not too much. And I think I was thinking about that in the context of government and in my own city. And I think part of the problem that we had was, you may have heard about this Lockout Laws in Sydney, where basically we had some bad violence outside clubs and in King's Cross in Sydney, and the government had, and a young man was killed. There was a huge reaction to that. The medical community, the emergency services community, basically said, we need to shut this down. And the government, our state government, not the local government, had a very strong reaction and basically, stopped the clubs from opening. They reduced their opening hours dramatically. And as a consequence of that, we saw massive shutdowns of live music venues, restaurants, city activity. And then the research showed us, oh yes, we've reduced crime in this area. Well, there's a reason for that. There was no people. So, it's this really over-regulation, over-response, I think, is a problem with government. But we also have to do this in a way that creates safety. So from the city's point of view, our Lord Mayor said, okay, I'll go with that, but you need to review this in 3 years' time to see what impact it's had. So we've been going through that process now, and it's very clear that we need to do loosen, those requirements. But we're going through that process now of how far do we go? So I think this is the question from government, like with a teenager, we need to set rules, but we also need to be very careful about the degree to which we set those rules, because the unintended consequences of that can be really disastrous. So that's the place that we're in now, and we're actually doing some deliberative democracy sessions around things like opening hours and entertainment noise and all of these things, to try and get our citizens to actually tell us, well, how are we going too far? Do we pull back? what would you be prepared to live with in order to have a more lively city? Are you prepared to put up with a little bit of noise up until, midnight, 1 a.m. on a weekend, but not during the week? These sorts of things. So that's the discussion we're having now.
Do you want to go? Yeah, go for it.
Yes. Well, in Lisbon, I think what we think is that it should be at one first stage to be the driver of this of participation, of cultural programming, and on a second stage just to be an enabler. I think we are on this second stage, and so in Lisbon up until the 90s there wasn't much cultural dynamics, so the city council had to be the driver and a producer of contents and of cultural programming. And now it's only a facilitator and more an enabler to the cultural agents to do their own programming. And I think it's the same with civic participation. So now we are the drivers for certain pilot measures, for certain projects. We have an example, which is Marvila Library, a very big library which was built in a low-income, multicultural area. And this is a kind of laboratory for experimenting with civic participation, and I think it's working really well. But in a second stage, I think we need to get the agents, the population, the community to work together, and then just let things work out.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, do you want to respond to that? Because you occupy quite an interesting place in Seoul in that you are both heading up cultural policy and an activist. So how does government get it right? Is Seoul getting it right?
동아시아의 전통이 유럽의 전통보다는 정부를 중요시하는 것 같아요. 그러니까 좀 리버럴한 네오리버럴리즘까지 온 특히 영국이나 유럽에서는 정부의 역할이 점점점 디레귤레이션 돼서 프라이빗 섹터에게 많은 역할을 주어왔다고 한다면 그러면서 이제 시장의 실패가 나타나는 거죠. 그런데 동아시아의 전통, 특히 이제 다른 이유에서 중국에서도 되게 정부의 역할이 강하고요. 한국의 역할, 또 동경에서의 역할도 강한 것 같아요. 물론 그 조그만 차이는 있지만 그 범주로 보면 그런 면에서 정부의 역할은 되게 중요하다. 특히 서울특별시는 대한민국에서 서울특별시는 그냥 원 오브 더 로컬 거버먼트가 아닙니다. 그러니까 서울은 대한민국을 상징하다 못해 대한민국 그 자체라고도 볼 수 있는데 서울은 되게 그런 면에서는 프로그레시브한 대한민국보다는 한 2발자국 더 앞선 시민의식을 가지고 있다고 보고요. 그런 시민의식 때문에 서울시 정부는 대한민국 정부보다 한 2발짝쯤 앞선 정책들을 해왔던 것 같고 그것이 저는 서울시의 행복을 추구하는 좀 더 시민 참여적인 그런 정책이라고 봅니다. 그래서 지금 이것이 대한민국 네이션 스테이트라고 하는 국가 단위로의 정책으로 가기 전 단계의 되게 실험적인 공간이다. 그리고 서울 시민들에게 참여적 동의를 얻으면 그게 대한민국 전체의 내셔널한 측면에서의 컬처럴 폴리시, 문화 정책으로 갈 수 있는 측면이 있다라고 보고요. 서울 대한민국에서는 15개의 로컬 거버먼트가 있는데 그 가운데 서울의 이 모범이 다른 14개 지역의 로컬 거버먼트에게도 아주 중요한 인사이트를 주고 더 나아가서는 국가적인 인사이트를 주고 최근에는 서울의 사례가 베이징, 상하이, 도쿄, 호치민 등 아시아에서도 중요한 인사이트를 주고 있는 그런다는 측면에서 서울시의 거버먼트의 역할은 유럽의 다른 도시와도 비교되고 아시아와도 비교되고 한국에서도 아주 스페셜한 포지션을 갖고 있기 때문에 더 의미 있다라고 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 네. 뭐 저기 답을 잘 했나요?
Yeah. No, it's very good, very good. So I'm going to ask a new question directed at Toronto and then Moscow. I'm giving you the heads up. Another theme of our conversations has been the relationship between culture and democracy, or culture and civic engagement in city life. And we've talked about the fact that culture can give a platform for debate. We heard about Black Tent and how it was the catalyst for a democratic change in Korea. Yesterday we were talking about the civil rights movement and the way in which art gave voice and was able to surface ideas in a different way in the civil rights movement in the United States. And I know that, Sally, you've got a fascinating example of a cultural event that led to political reconciliation, an extraordinary turn of events where Black Lives Matter blocked gay pride. So do you want to tell us about that?
I do, because this is a moment of cultural intervention that is about civic engagement or civic conversation that is started by artists. So in 2015 in Toronto, Black Lives Matter, which is an activist group of young artists, and many of them are Black and trans, they blocked the parade of the large parade of the Pride Festival. Now in Toronto, the Pride Festival is a month-long activity, but its main core public event is a parade down public city streets. It requires, as all festivals in public space requires, the huge participation of the city, etc. The Prime Minister and the Premier, which are the other levels of government, were participating in that parade. And what happened was Black Lives Matter was protesting both, in some ways, the festival itself, because agents of the LGBTQ community felt that the festival itself had become too corporatized and too complacent in its sort of political activism. And they also felt that there were distinct difficulties in relations between both the African Caribbean Black communities in Toronto and the police. So using the platform of this very large event, organized by and for the community, they blocked the parade. In a moment of duress, the executive director at the time agreed to the demand that in the following year, the Toronto Police Service would be banned from participating in the parade. So unfortunately, that executive director had to resign, and there was a bit of chaos within the organization. Meanwhile, with that demand that the police, and I should tell you, the police services had been participating in the parade as in floats for like over a decade, and there was a relations force between the police services and the community. So the police union, the people who represented the officers, were extremely upset by being banned from the parade, and they started a very strong and to some degree understandable campaign to make sure that city funding for the organization wouldn't happen. As a festival, in terms of cash, the Pride Festival does in fact require significant cash funding. They have all kinds of sponsorships, but they do require cash funding from the city to operate. So it was quite a contentious issue, and in what happened in the time was that the chief of police, who I should say is a Black man, was very gracious and said, because there was a lack of sort of management and executive direction in the organization, said, for 1 year grace period, we'll allow Pride Festival as an organization to regroup and reorganize itself. We will not participate in the parade. So police forces, being what they are, very top-down sort of organizations, despite the protest of the officers, both the city and city officials, as well as the organization, had the chief's word to go on that they wouldn't participate. That didn't stop council from having a very, very long debate about it. And understandably, many city councillors were very upset about the idea of funding a festival for which its own employees were banned from participating. So there was a lot of debate. In the end, funding for the festival passed. The new executive director who took over the festival, she is a very, very smart and diplomatic woman, and she managed the conversation between the community and the police, and so they moved forward. The result of that action, in a way, and it's not 100% resolved, believe me, but the result of that action has been a long-term strategy to develop a coalition of citizens within the LGBTQ community who are involved with the Pride Festival and within the police services to continue a long-term dialogue to address those issues of transphobia and of black racism in the city. And that is an action that was absolutely started by a bunch of very strong activists. That it was a disruption for sure, but that has resulted through the ability for a bunch of people in power to listen very carefully to that message. And I would say the context of that is also that the artists and the activists who were speaking, they were being listened to, and that to me is a crucial portion of how that civic engagement happens. The deputy chief of police in Toronto is also a lesbian woman, and she also has very deep roots in the community herself, so she can really understand the issues from both sides. And that's why that happened, and so we hope that there's a long-term conversation between the communities, and in fact, a sort of a reconciliation, again, long-term.
Thank you. Vladimir.
After Sally's, I will describe another side of this about religious people. We have, to my mind, very interesting case this year. We're now having about the civic engagement into culture. There is the movie, this year movie called Matilda, that was produced with the support of the Federal Ministry of Culture, with federal funds, and by a very popular and mainstream modern Russian director. It tells a story about the last our Russian emperor, Nikolai II, of his married life and his love before his wedding to the empress, more than 1 century ago, in the end of the 19th century. It's a typical mainstream blockbuster with a love story made for the mass audience. But as Nicholas II was brutally murdered by communists after socialist revolution in Russia, almost 20 years ago, he and his family was numbered among the saints by the Russian Orthodox Church. Therefore, the idea of the movie itself offered some people's religious beliefs. We are having mass protests and even riots against it. There was a man in the city of Yekaterinburg, not Moscow, but enough big city in Russia, in the city of Yekaterinburg, who drove his car into the cinema hall and tried to burn it. Should I mention that these people didn't even watch the movie? It was before premiere. They just heard of it. The degree of madness is so high that even our conservative Federal Ministry of Culture has to oppose this spontaneous civic engagement into culture and defend this movie. And we defend this movie. The cinemas, most private cinemas in Russia, most cinemas not under government, it's belong to private sector, and most of cinemas were afraid, firstly, to show the movie. In Moscow, it were our city government cinemas who made the first statement that we will put it on the screens. The arts and culture, I think, have always catalyzed civic engagement. It's natural and it will remain the same. So civic engagement is not the end in itself. We need smart civic engagement into culture. For instance, in Moscow, we need citizens to demand positive change from our culture institutions, because our infrastructure is huge Most of you visited Moscow last year and know that there are more than 1,000 addresses under our Department of Culture, and we subsidized more than 40,000 staff in it. And we do not have a change to find great managers for all our institutions. We want people to demand development from our OK managers and to help them find the ways for this development. We are looking for mechanisms that would support the type of civic engagement and initiatives now.
Yeah, very fascinating. I'm going to take that a little bit further, actually, thinking about the professional cultural sector and citizens or amateurs. I mean, we've been talking a lot about citizens as creators. So my question is, does that create a tension between professional and amateur? Sally, you made the point yesterday about how vocal artists are. Do artists skew the conversation?
Yes, first of all, we love artists, I have to say. And in fact, in Seoul, I'm delighted to see just how many of the other people in cultural policy, in fact, come from the sector as filmmakers, theater producers, just the whole range, composers and musicians. I too come from the sector, so I really do understand what it's like from that side, very much so. That said, the conversation does get skewed, and it's partly because although artists don't always have a lot of economic capital, they do have social capital, and they do organize, and they're generally very well educated. So with that, they are able to engage in sort of civic engagement processes collectively, very loudly, and really speak for their sector in a way that is about resources to the professional arts community. What they're not necessarily looking at is how the distribution of that arts funding goes, or who it's going to, or whether the next generation or the upcomers, the arts organizations driven by less newcomer communities and visible minority communities, how that distribution comes. Nobody in the sector, doesn't matter how large you are, nobody in the sector feels they have enough. So that's a constant struggle with us, because as public servants, we're then looking from the citizen point of view about distributing cultural services and infrastructure across the city more equitably. And that conversation does get skewed through the fact that people who really don't have a lot of a cultural capital or social capital in their communities aren't really heard loudly at the public consultation process. That's true.
So this is a controversial point. Are artists sometimes a barrier to civic participation?
That I would say no.
That's a bit far-fetched. No. But it's interesting. It's interesting. Does anyone else want to respond to that? Seoul, do you have a perspective on that? Or Lisbon? Lisbon and then Seoul?
Well, Lisboa, please.
Lisbon and then Seoul.
Lisboa.
Well,
Yeah.
I think, I can relate with that. I understand, yes, in Lisbon, it's also mainly about the resources that the artists have. But I think it's a little different, because the artists are always very eager to work with communities. We feel that, and in our criteria for subventions, and there are both nationally and locally, there are some criteria regarding participation and work with the communities, and we feel that almost all theater, dance companies are very eager to work with these communities, and it's very fulfilling. I also come from I'm also a cultural producer myself, and the experience is one of the most incredible and fulfilling. So I think in Portugal overall, and mainly in Lisbon, this happens a lot, and so far has not created tension with amateurs.
예, 그 서울이 고성장 국면에서 저성장 국면으로 바뀌면서 최대의 피해자는 젊은이였습니다. 그 청년들이었죠. 고성장 시대에는 everybody can take a job, 직장을 얻을 수 있었어요. 고등학교만 졸업해도 다 얻을 수 있는데 저성장으로 가니까 직장이 더 이상 없는 거죠. 그래서 나이 든 사람들은 직장을 어느 정도는 커버할 수 있었지만 젊은 사람들은 직장이 없었던 거죠. 그래서 저는 예술가와 시민들 간의 서로 간의 갈등보다는 지금은 청년 예술가들의 문제가 대한민국 서울에서는 너무 중요하다. 그러니까 청년 계급이 잡이 없고 그 가운데 청년 예술가들은 동료들에게 지지도 받지 못하고 사회적으로도 지지를 받지 못해서 이중적인 블라인드 스팟이라고 볼 수 있다. 그런데 만약에 이런 것이 30년 지속된다면 원 제너레이션의 컬처와 아트가 없는 제너레이션이 될 수도 있다는 위기의식이 있기 때문에 지금 젊은이들에게 있어서의 예술가들의 어떤 그 생계 고용이라든지 예술 활동의 공간을 확보하는 것, 이런 것들은 프라이빗 섹터에서는 절대로 못한다. 그것을 바로 퍼블릭 섹터인 거버먼트가 해줘야 되는 부분이다라고 문제 제기를 한번 해보고 싶어요. 네.
Would anyone else like to respond to that? Yeah, Sydney, before we move on.
Yeah, I think it comes back again to this role of government. And, you know, for the City of Sydney, you know, what people told us was that they wanted, you know, to have more opportunities for participation and, you know, in the making and a say about the art that happened in their city. And I think that is where potentially the conflict can come between the professional art community and our citizens, because, you know, how that plays out in public art, for example, you know, public art is often a very contentious, you know, thing. And on the one hand, you know, you have this vision for this amazing public artwork, and then you have a whole lot of citizens who hate it and they don't want it, and, you know, and so how do you balance these things? And for me, it comes down to having multiple things. It's not one or the other. And that's where, you know, as a city government, we need to make sure that whilst we might have very strong commissioning of major public art and design, we do need to hear the voice of people in that. But also we need to balance as well with having lots of opportunities for people to actually, you know, create and make and have a role to play. And that also comes down to things like art on our streets. So, you know, we need to make sure that the democratic arts, which I, you know, think like street art, you know, graffiti art, you know, busking, you know, outdoor performances, these are really important. You know, they're actually ways for young artists in terms of the street art. We've found this. This is a way for them to really begin, you know, a sort of a journey of their creative practice. But if they don't have any walls, or if it gets, you know, they get fined or it gets painted over. So we have done something here in Sydney, which is we've introduced what's called an exempt category for street art. So it's legalised the use of you know, building, you know, walls in the city, as long as it's not heritage listed, and you have the permission of the owner. Go fine, and as long as it's within, you know, it can't be discriminatory or racist or, you know, any of those things, but you can do it. And whereas before, you know, we had situations where, you know, building owners were really happy for their walls to be used, but the city would come and paint it off because they didn't have permission. So, and we're trying to do the same thing around busking and the use of, you know, our public spaces, so that we, you know, we have this opportunity for people to just turn up. And, you know, it's okay if it's bad. You know, that's you know, we sorry, it's okay if it's bad. You know, like we have, I mean, some of the buskers, they are terrible. You know, but I will stand up and support the right for them to stand on that street corner and sing badly, because as a city government, we should not be curating that. You know, we can curate a whole lot of other things, but we should not be curating that.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. And we're doing a similar thing in London, actually, and especially around busking. We've established a code of conduct to try and broker the kind of, you know, residents and businesses who keep complaining. We had an extraordinary situation I'll just share with you on the busking, whereby we as the Mayor's Office run a busking competition for young people. All over the summer they're busking on the streets, and at the end of the summer there's a winner. The public vote for the best busker, right? And at the end of the summer the Mayor announced the winner of the busking competition, you know, and there was a great fanfare. And then the next day, that weekend, I got a call saying, the police have arrested the winning buskers and they're in jail. Can you go and break them out? So yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey. I'm going to ask one more question, then we'll open it out. And I'm going to ask it just because we haven't really touched on it. And it's about technology in this space. So, technology, friend or foe? You know, in this digital world, you know, it's increasingly dominant, the digital space. But in that digital space, there's no real human connection. And cities themselves can also feel quite lonely, quite disconnected. So what is the role of technology in this civic engagement space? Vladimir, do you want to start?
Culture is created by men, right? Right.
Or woman?
Man, humanity, man and woman, yeah, exactly. Actually, I think whatever is created by men and women can't be a foe to culture because it's just a part of human's culture. Being afraid of technologies is infantile. It's simply nostalgic, I think. People become better with each generation. Better. Culture becomes more complex and sophisticated with time. And technologies helps culture to develop, to spread culture through different countries, from different points in our planet. Besides, technologies help world culture heritage to spread across the world. They help different nationalities get rid of stereotypes they have about each other's cultures. It's a long and difficult process, but we have already gone a long way in this direction, and technologies helps us a great deal, I think.
Very good. Does anyone else want to respond to technology?
I do, partly because I also know that technology is a huge time waster, and I can be as guilty, and a lot of people can watch a lot of cat videos on their phones. I mean, that's also a thing that happens. With regards to the role of municipal government and technology, this is where I think the city's role as a convener can actually be useful. So one of the things that the City of Toronto is trying to do right now is actually convene a lot of the institutions that have some digital information officer or some capacity to look at how digital technologies can affect their business practices. So this is not about the creation of content on digital tools. This is not about dissemination, but this is very much about how the creative sector together can aggregate data to understand consumer behavior, to share databases across all markets, to target philanthropic giving better, to figure out ways in which, just in the same way Airbnb and banking and everything has changed your world as much as mine through technology and Uber and taxis, that force that will affect all of our lives can somehow be applied to the culture sector. And so I'm just going to give you one really brilliant example. In the museum sector, there's a lot of unused capacity in hospitals and universities to do 3D imaging. So those 3D imaging machines are not used 24 hours a day. What a digital technology strategy is trying to do is get the museums who want to get their collections put into databases through a 3D machine with the data files in 3D, using those tools that universities and hospitals have when they're not being used by the universities and hospitals. That's a very, very complex thing to do, but by convening all of these different sectors together, there's an opportunity there that might be very useful.
Go. Yeah, Sydney.
Yeah, I think City of Sydney. We've got a digital strategy. We've just appointed our digital officer, chief digital officer. But I think the key thing is about technology as an enabler. And I was really taken by your terminology, memoryscape. And I think this is the role that technology can play in terms of culture to really deliver those layers of meaning and story. That's, you don't want, kind of big plaques everywhere or whatever. But for example, in our city, we have this concept of a walking, sort of tour through the city and along the harbour foreshore. But to think about that not as a big piece of infrastructure, but as a way that as you move through that, you can be delivered the stories of our First Nations people, of all those layers of, activism, and which, you can't see it, in the park, or in the buildings, but you could listen to it and, have those things. And I think that, to me, that very layered, poetic, interpretation of all of those memories, to me, that would be a wonderful thing to see here.
Yeah, very good. Mr. Lee.
우리는 디지털 시대에 살고 있죠. 이 디지털 시대에서 아날로그의 그 컨텐츠를 디지털라이즈하고 있죠. 그러니까 사실 우리가 살고 있는 디지털 시대는 아날로그 시대의 컨텐츠에 빚지고 있는 거예요. 우리는 채무자입니다. 아날로그에 수없이 많은 르네상스, Chinese culture, Japanese, 라틴 아메리카 등등 수없이 많은 아날로그 시빌라이제이션을 어떻게 보면 익스플로이트하고 있다, 착취하고 있다라고도 보는 거예요. 그런데 디지털 시대는 다시 아날로그 시대에게 피드백을 안 주는 거예요. 사실 작가, 연극인, 무용가, 거리 예술가 이런 사람들은 정말 아날로그 예술을 만들기 위해서 땀 흘리는 사람들인데 디지털은 그것을 찍고 인스타그램으로 전달하지만 페이스북에 올리지만 그것의 아날로그 컨텐츠를 만드는 휴먼웨어에다가는 피드백에 인베스트를 하지 않는 거예요. 난 이것의 언밸런스가 너무 중요하고 디지털 문명, 시빌라이제이션이 문명 정도의 수준을 가지려면 아날로그 컨텐츠에 대한 이 채무를 제대로 갚아야 한다. 그리고 우리나라 한국의 경우는 삼성, 핸드폰 보면 애플, 오와 삼성 디바이스를 만드는데 이 삼성 디바이스를 만드는 삼성 회사는 서울에 아날로그 문명을 만드는데 뭘 기여하고 있는가에 대해서 저는 질문하려고 해요. 그래서 삼성의 오너에게 당신 디바이스를 다 쓰고 당신이 커뮤니케이션 퍼실리티를 다 공급하는데 마켓인데 이 마켓에 대해서 다시 시민들의 아날로그적 감성을 고양하기 위한 인베스트를 너희들이 안 하면 결국은 디지털 시빌라이제이션은 되게 푸어해진다라는 논리가 필요하지 않을까라고 제안하고 싶고 Justine, could you please send an email to the boss of Samsung? Could you please?
Okay, whatever you want. Fantastic. Right, let's open it out. I'm going to go to Laya. Wanted to ask a question. Oh, yeah, go on. Do you want to? We got a microphone? Let's open it out. I think we can do open Q&A, but I'd also say if there are world cities in the room who would like to share a kind of interesting example of this in your city, I think that's also a useful thing to share.
Thanks, Lucy from Julie's Bicycle in London. Thank you all for your contributions. My question is for Lisa. And I just wanted to pick up on what you were saying around deliberative democracy. It's something I've come across before, and actually the example was also in Australia, and it was about raising awareness and trying to create consensus around action on climate change. But I wondered from your experience of doing it, how successful it was in creating consensus, maybe how long it took to get there, and also how you ensured that the process was truly representative of society, because I think deliberative democracy holds a lot of potential for creating a democratic culture and for citizen participation, but I imagine the people who put themselves up for being part of the process are probably already the people that might have a voice. So how you ensure you reach all of the communities that don't necessarily have a voice?
We're about to do a piece of this work specifically around our regulation reform. So I've been involved in the whole procurement, for this and decisions. So it's a random sample of 30 people who represent the demographics, the demographics of the city. So they're not putting their hands up. We're actually, they're being chosen. They're being chosen by an agency that specialises in doing that. But we've spent a lot of time trying to think about how we're going to frame the questions that they think about. And it's the process that we're using is deliberative democracy. It's not a citizen jury, so they're not going to be voting on anything. The process will be over 2 evenings, 1 week apart. They'll have 3 hours together. The first part will be about setting the information, so they have all the information at hand, and then it will be a discussion. So it's the deliberative part of it. What we will learn is actually around the discussions that take place. So that's a very different approach to, say, a citizen jury, where you put up a question and then people actually work towards, and then they vote on it. Okay, so that we're not voting on anything. This is actually we will aim to come to a consensus. That's not necessarily the only thing we're driving for. What we will be looking for, and what we've asked the people, the specialists in this area, is actually documenting the conversations that take place, and what is it that changes people's view. So what do they need to know? What would they be comfortable with? What would make them feel better about X or Y, if that was put in place? So I think that's the difference, I think. So look, this is a new thing for us to do in this particular context, and I think we're going to be experimenting more and more. And it came about as a result of realising that some of our surveying was exactly that. So we were hearing from potentially the same people, who were very organised. They would come to the events, and so you have to be really, really careful about how you do that. I will say that the biggest process we have used most recently is in the development of our social policy, and that policy that work really, really worked on structuring conversations with the different demographic groups and trying to avoid this thing of the loudest voice. And I think we've come up with a really, really good policy as a result of that. That's very, very balanced, because it was really a 2-year process of really, deep engagement, activities, cultural activity, a whole range of things that actually got to that result. But it takes time, and I think this is the thing, that we all have to be prepared that on the one hand, we were talking this week about accelerating, things in our city that, take so long. Well, we just may need to have to accept the fact that if we're doing this, it's going to take time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The question over there? You can introduce yourself to the room.
Hi, I'm Bronwyn, City of Los Angeles, County of Los Angeles, whatever. It dawned on me this morning while we're talking that for the past couple of days we have been talking about us as government, culture as outside. And I'm wondering if anyone on the panel has thoughts about the potential for the role of culture inside government as a catalyst to ignite a new civic spirit in our cities. And I'm not talking about those of us and our colleagues who happen to be artists, the stealth artists who are working in government, but artists as artists in government.
Would anyone like to respond to artists in government? Yeah, go on. Great.
I was going to ask the same question, but I have an example. And actually, I was talking to my colleagues from New York about it the other day. I had an experience working in the United States on a very, very big infrastructure project. And one of the decisions we made was to put an artist on the engineering team, the infrastructure team. And it was, for me, the most profound, life-changing experience. They were not there to make anything. Yeah. They were there as a sort of part of the professional multidisciplinary team, and they turned the engineers' brains inside out. And they made everyone think about sustainability. This was back in the early 90s, before we were even talking about it. And I think, talking to my colleagues in New York about Meryl Euclid, the artist that's been with the New York Sanitation Department for 40 years, I really think that those roles for artists within government are really profound. Yeah. And it would be really interesting to look at how we can instrumentalise that in a way. Not every project or government department might benefit from it, but it's that occasional moment where you turn people's brains inside out and you shift the thinking and the paradigm. And it's been a really profoundly important experience for my work. And I'd be really interested to hear if any other cities have had artists working within government.
Yeah, very good. Austin.
Megan Wells from Austin. We just launched our first artist in residence within government, and we chose our watershed protection department to pilot it with because we thought that there might be some opportunities to explore a better connection between the community's needs and consumption of city services in a different way through an artistic lens. And it's been very interesting to see what the artist has picked up on in her work within the residency and kind of how that mirrors or doesn't mirror what the community needs are. And so we're interested to see if there are lessons learned that we might share with the broader community. These programs are happening in other cities. We're not the first to come up with this, but it's the first time in Austin. I think it's been a good way for us to introduce that artistic voice and perspective within the role in the context of city government, and we're expanding it to 2 different departments next year, our innovation office and our resource recovery, which is based on kind of the sanitation, solid waste context. So happy to share our lessons learned.
Very good. New York. You've got a great example of someone working, is it in your waste department?
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning New York. Yes, we have Meryl Euclid, who's been an artist in residence at the Department of Sanitation for about 40 years. And recognizing that may not be a replicable model for every agency or every municipality, we did just launch a different kind of version of that. It's called PAIR, which is Public Artist in Residence. And we piloted the program in 2015, where we embedded 4 different artists in 4 different agencies to address pressing civic challenges and work really at the agency level with staff and commissioners to figure out how to engage with citizens in different ways. And the results have been pretty amazing. And we just 3 weeks ago issued another open call for the next round of artists. So we're looking for artists now for the Department of Correction, Department of Probation, our Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. So they really run the gamut, and we've been getting a tremendous amount of support, both from agencies who are clamoring to sign up for the program, as well as artists who are really willing and interested in engaging in this way.
Wow. LA.
The city of Los Angeles actually.
This is Laura Zucker from LA.
Yes, Laura Zucker. Has had an artist embedded for some time working on traffic, transportation issues, particularly on making crosswalks safer and looking at innovative ways. In the county of Los Angeles, we're calling these embedded artists creative strategists. So we're trying to move away from the term artists so as not to scare people too much. And I believe the county is going to be embedding 2 artists in the coming year, one in libraries and the other in our registrar recorder, dealing with voting and registration issues, where I think the possibilities for how an artist creative strategist is almost unlimited in increasing participation in a civil society. So I think just from this range of examples, there's a nice white paper here somewhere. And there's no department, I think, within a government structure that couldn't benefit from a creative strategist.
I can feel a WCCF pamphlet coming on. Liar. Microphone at the front.
I have a question for
Laia Gask.
I'm Laia Gask
from London. London and Barcelona.
And Barcelona. I have a question for the panel. Do you think that civic participation works better when there's adversity? So that we need some sort of conflicts to generate engagement. I was really touched by the example of the Black Tent Theatre and the Candlelit Revolution. But I'm also thinking in London, for example, we've got Notting Hill Carnival, which is the largest carnival in Europe, and it came about as part of racial conflict. I'm thinking of Barcelona these days, where people are out in the streets, and we have been out in the streets for the last 7 years, creating all sorts of civic interventions, human chains, towers, human flags, to ask for the right to vote. All those examples are examples where actually people set the agenda. It's not the government saying, it's good for you to do this, it's good for you to participate, but rather it's the people coming out asking the government to respond. So my question to you, do you think that conflict creates better civic engagement rather than backbasking?
Great question. Who would like to respond to that? From the panel and also from the floor. Lisbon, yeah? Go for it.
Maybe I can answer. Of course, I agree with, I think when you have adversity, it joins people together to fight for a cause. Of course, I agree with that. But there are other examples. To give you examples in Lisbon of things that have happened with civic participation without having this conflict. We have the Street Arts Festival. It started out as a measure to abolish the graffitis in heritage buildings, and now we have a policy for the street art in the city, and we have every year this festival, and each year is in a different neighborhood, and this has created people together around this at a local, national and international level. So this is one example. And another one, I think tradition and identity of the city also gathers, besides adversity, also is a reason to gather people around civic causes. In the case of Lisbon, the cultural identity of the city's festivities has generated a phenomenon of the sardines, which we eat during the month of June, and this has become a symbol of the city, and everybody has adopted this as the symbol of their identity. And we have a contest, I think like the one you were describing in London, a contest for where many people, not only Portuguese but from other countries, apply for this prize. So, well, my point is, of course, adversity and conflict are the main reasons, but I think there are others.
Mr. Lee?
아티스트인가 시민인가, 그리고 저는 시민 참여가 전체의 그러니까 서울을 예를 든다면 시민 참여만으로 서울시의 문화 정책을 이끌어갈 수는 없다고 봅니다. 여전히 거기에는 프로페셔널 아티스트의 크리에이티브가 있는 것이죠. 그러니까 레이맨과 프로페셔널 아티스트는 분명 다른 수준을 가지고 있기 때문에 저는 시민의 참여를 존중하지만 시민의 참여만으로 이루어진 문화 정책은 있을 수 없다라는 것이 저의 결론이고요. 두 번째, 그러면 위기 국면과 어떤 정치적 변곡점 속에서 문화예술은 무엇을 하는가? 저는 문화예술은 보통 때는 바이올린 치고 피아노 치고 그림 그리는 것이 그냥 일상 에브리데이 라이프지만 그런 역사적 변곡점에서는 그 역사를 훨씬 더 드라마타이즈하고 훨씬 더 크리스탈라이즈한다. 그것이 저는 아티스트의 숨겨져 있지만 포텐셜이라고 봅니다. 그러니까 이번 서울시의 촛불시민혁명에서도 그냥 일상적으로 저희들은 평소에 광장에 1년에 한 번도 안 나가요. 거기 광장 재미없잖아요. 뭐 춥고. 근데 저는 지난 겨울에 17번을 에브리 위크엔드에 나갔어요. 그거는 사회 변화를 위해서인 것이죠. 이렇게 시민들은 특정한 계기에서 문화의 잠재력이 있을 때 그 잠재력을 기반으로 이그나이트, 발화가 된다. 그 발화를 위해서 문화예술의 베이직스, 기반이 필요하다. 그리고 그 기반을 퍼블릭 섹터인 시티 거버먼트에서 만들 수 있도록 아티스트를 평소에 지원해줘야 된다. 이런 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다.
Great, thank you. Any more questions? Great. Well, I'm going to ask the panelists to just close, really, and give us a few sentences. I want you to paint a picture of what would you like civic engagement and culture to look like in your future, in your cities in the future. Some kind of future gazing. But I won't ask you to do that now. I'm going to give you a few moments to think about it. And I will attempt to summarize what we've learned this morning. So, this is what we've learned. Economic arguments are still useful. Don't dump them, evolve them into including well-being and civic participation. Track success, so you know if what you're doing is making a difference from Sydney. Trust is critical for civic engagement. Without it, it doesn't work. Culture can give citizens a voice. We talked about the power of culture in communication. We talked about culture as the fourth pillar of sustainable development. We said that cultural participation is directly proportional to civic engagement from Moscow. We said don't over-regulate. Getting the role of government right is a big topic. Getting the balance right. We talked about the role of cities. Cities can lead and experiment where nations can't. That was a point from Seoul. We talked about civic engagement not being an end in itself. And also the role of citizens in influencing cultural institutions. We acknowledge that artists are powerful players in civic space. Don't underestimate them. We talked about the interface between citizens as creatives and the professional arts community. We talked about the need for balance there, and that it's sometimes important to defend bad art. We said, don't be afraid of technology, embrace it, use it as an enabler. There is incredible potential, but we need a balance. You talked about this great phrase, exploiting the remains of analog culture. And we should be prepared that this kind of new relationship between government, cities, and people takes time, and we should acknowledge that. We talked about artists in government, the incredible potential here, and the fact that there's lots of examples around the world of people doing this. And we talked about adversity as a catalyst for civic and cultural engagement, but sometimes not. Sometimes it's just about sardines in June. So that's my summary. So final words from our panelists. What does the future look like for you in a few sentences? Go for it. Sydney, go for it.
Okay. I've been thinking about this a lot, and because it's really thinking about what am I going to do when I go home, you know? And what is it about this week that's, you know, how has it changed my perspective? And, you know, I think for the future for us in the city, and my role really as the cultural strategy lead, it's really seeing a much stronger interplay between, you know, our working with our social teams, working with our environmental team, working with our economic team, to really do more experimenting. You know, I think this is something we are not good at. We try and over-organise and plan and overthink, and that maybe we need to be a little bit braver about taking some ideas or a problem and really engaging with artists, with our community members, with members of staff in the city, and, you know, investing in some kind of you know, incubator, experimentation, you know, so learning by doing. You know, I'd like us to go beyond this notion of, you know, consultation and asking questions, and actually coming up with co-design, co-creation with our people. So that's what I want to see.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Beyond consultation. Great. Okay, Lisbon.
We all agree that culture is essential. I think it's essential for civic spirit, but like you said, we cannot do it alone. We have to collaborate with the other areas of intervention, of government and local government intervention. What I would like is that culture is called to cultural planning, to environmental strategies from our colleagues in the municipality, in my case, and I think that would be a big change.
Thank you. Toronto.
I think very aspirationally, including everything that you said, if a civic society, and certainly everybody in my city, deeply adopted, profoundly adopted sort of a rights-based approach to cultural participation in the same way clean water, education, park space, if participation in culture was deemed a civic right and a civic responsibility for the government to enable, I think that would probably go the longest way to sort of transforming its position overall in my city.
Very good, very good. Oscar?
I think that all people in all megapolises and all over the world would like to live in comfortable, safety, interesting cities in friendly atmosphere. So the culture helps people, helps citizens, and mostly helps government of the city to make this atmosphere in the city. But it's about, I think, there's two ways. The first way is about cultural leisure. How our citizens visit, how often they visited museums, concert halls, exhibitions, and the second way is about, I think that all masterpieces, not simply civic arts, but all masterpieces based on strictly discipline. And so I think we have to know and understand the two types of arts. So for us it's very interesting. We are very interested in collaboration with strong non-government civic organization to engage people in our culture program. You know that during Soviet period, a lot of decisions without discussions were signed. So we try to develop requests of our citizens for culture, and it's a long way. But I hope we will, with a success, to run it.
Thank you. And final word to Seoul.
예, 아주 점심 시간이 가까워졌으니까 짧게 하겠습니다. 그 디지털과 아날로그의 화해, 상생은 이미 얘기했고요. 그런 면에서는 디지털 섹터가 아날로그 섹터에게 빚진 게 많다. 이제 빚을 갚아라 이런 얘기입니다. 두 번째는 마켓플레이스와 네이션 스테이트와의 관계인데요. 퍼블릭 스피어와 프라이빗 스피어에서 이제까지 디레귤레이션과 네오리버럴이 너무 마켓 중심적인 정책을 가져왔다. 근데 이미 시장은 실패했다. 이 실패를 시장도 보완해야 되고 국가도 관여해서 보정해야 된다. 그러지 않고는 우리의 금융 위기 이후에 세계의 리더십이 없다. 저는 봅니다. 두 번째죠. 세 번째는 아시아의 부분입니다. 이게 지금 보면 월드 시티스인데 인터내셔널 스탠다드는 되게 우리식으로 보면 에드워드 사이드 입장에서 보면 되게 유로피언 중심이고 웨스턴 중심인 것 같아요. 여기에 오리엔탈이라고 하는 노 이슬람 컬처, 노 에이시안, 뭐 maybe 샹하이, 셴첸 있지만 노 베이징, just two members from Tokyo, just single members maybe from Vietnam. 뭐 I'm not sure. 그러니까 아시아 사람이 너무 없다는 거예요. 너무 이게 유로센트릭, 유럽 중심적 지배 질서다. I'm so sorry, Justin. 예. 그래서 이제는 조금 얼터너티브에 대한 관점도 가졌으면 좋겠고, 저는 이때 중국의 역할이 중요하다고 봐요. 중국의 상하이, 베이징, 셴첸 이런 데는 자기 도시가 2,500만, 3,000만이에요. 이거는 울트라 메가 시티 in the world we never experienced. 이런 도시를 어떻게 우리가 미래 문화를 통해서 변화시킬 것인가 너무 중요한 화두인데 이게 유로센트릭한 밸류에서는 커버할 수 없는 거죠. 저는 그래서 유럽의 지적 기반을 통해서 아시아를 분석해주고 아시아는 나름대로 우리 스스로 우리의 미래의 비전에 대해서 논의할 때가 됐다. 아니 지났지만 우리가 다시 그런 논의의 주도권을 만들어야 된다라는 말씀을 마지막으로 드립니다. 네.
Very good points. Absolutely agree. Yeah, thank you. So, thank you all, our panelists. It's been a really great discussion, some fantastic insights. So, I'd like you to just give a massive round of applause to our fantastic panelists. Okay, you want us to stay on stage? Okay, Mr. Go on.
네, 저기 one moment please. Please sit here. 제가 오늘과 같은 국제 Please take your earphone, please. Just 1 minute. 오늘과 같은 국제 행사는 아이디어의 교류가 제일 중요합니다. 근데 아이디어의 공유는 다른 생각을 이해하는 계기가 되는데요. 오늘도 그랬다고 생각해요. 그래서 오늘은 아이디어 익스체인지를 삭스 익스체인지, 즉 양말을 바꿔 신는 걸로 표현해 보고 싶은데요. 그래서 저에게는 오늘 아침에 10켤레의 삭스를 사왔어요. 그래서 하나는 블랙이고 하나는 화이트인데 화이트에는 yes, 블랙에는 no. We have a different opinion. 그래서 이거의 퍼포먼스를 하고 싶습니다. 그래서 여기 계신 제가 레이디스에게 신발을 벗도록 강요할 수는 없고요. 발런티어 되신 분들 7분에게 양말을 나눠주고 그 양말을 신고 퍼포먼스를 하는 것을 사진을 한번 찍고 이거를 마무리 지을까 하는데 괜찮겠습니까? May I ask? Just 7 volunteers. Yeah, if you can, I will prepare. One moment, please. Okay. You have. I got. White and black.
So this is civic engagement through the form of socks.
let me give some information for delegates. Yeah, what a culture shock. I mean, the culture shock.